test fit of the back panel, I discovered something interesting, in that the switchcraft jacks that I have for this do not fit in these holes. They don't fit. So those will have to be drilled out. It's interesting to note that they do fit in the front panel. They fit just fine there, so I'm not sure what's up with that, but they will be drilled out. When doing the test fit for the power supply capacitor board, I noticed something interesting. So once you line up the holes where the wires pass through in the grommets, the mounting holes don't line up. In fact, you can mark them. That's where they should be. And that's where that one should be. Pretty close, but not right. So those will have to be drilled. And another thing that I discovered, once you're looking at the eyelet board, see this is face up with the eyelet board, you realize that it doesn't work. It's got to be upside down. So the eyelet board has to be installed upside down for these offset holes to be in the right place. Not that that's a huge deal, but it's kind of interesting. Well, I discovered another interesting fit, or should I say, well, let's call it fit. Let's catalog this under fit. As you recall, I was using 440 screws for the doghouse, for the eyelet board out back, and for this reverb transformer. These guys use larger screws. And what I found is, when I was mounting the tube sockets, I ran out of screws. Therefore, I'm thinking that, well, there's not enough screws for these sockets, and I'm thinking that this issue with the washer that I had here, well, I think they intended a different screw entirely to go there, one that is not in the kit. But that's okay. I've got plenty of screws. I can substitute something. Another fit thing that I've found kind of interesting is potentiometers. All right, so this potentiometer is one that I purchased separately for the master volume. It's a dual pot because I want to use a post-pi master. But if you have a look at the length of the collet, it's fairly short compared to the ones that came in the kit, which are pretty long. So I'm not sure what they're expecting to do there. But they did provide a whole pile of washers in the kit. Lots and lots and lots and lots of these washers, specifically for the potentiometers. So I'm thinking they want us to stack up a bunch of washers per pot? I don't know. Guess so. We'll try it, see what happens. Another thing I encountered during the test fit are these switches for the bright switches. So if you can see here, because the front panel is so thick, you barely have enough room to flip this switch. That in itself isn't so bad. However, the screws that are used in this switch are a insert type, and it should be a pan head because they stick out like that and they don't look nice. So I'm thinking of sourcing an entirely new switch with a little longer handle, if you will, and ones with some nice pan head screws on them. Another thing encountered during the test fit are the knob shafts. Some of the knob shafts are 1/4 of an inch. Other ones are metric, and they're just a little bit smaller. Now, be that as it may, it's not a huge deal, except when you have one of these to put on it. So this guy has a 1/4 inch hole in it, and it fits that guy perfectly. This guy kind of rattles around there a little bit, back and forth. Now that might not be such a big deal, because it's got a set screw and you tighten it up. But unfortunately what happens is it gets a little kink in it, like this, and it kind of wobbles around like this when you're turning it. I don't like that. Another fit issue was discovered while mounting the input jacks for the reverb/tremolo channel. And that is, this input jack here is quite close to this grommet. And I think, grommet, what's the big deal? Well, what the big deal is the signals that are going to be passing through that. In fact, that's where the power supply for the entire amplifier passes through on the way to the doghouse. So there's going to be considerable 60 hertz ripple on that. Well, actually, it's going to be 120 hertz ripple on that because it's rectified at that point. And similarly, there's another one over here which also has a high voltage on it, again with ripple. I especially don't like this one. It's quite close to this input jack. The chances of this input jack picking up hum and noise are pretty high. There's room in the doghouse, and there's room on the actual plate itself to move those holes down a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this hole down as close as possible to the near side of this eyelet board, and the same with this one, just to pull it away from those things. I have to verify, of course, that whatever's on this eyelet board at that place isn't sensitive to noise either, but that is my plan, and we'll see how that goes. All right, the last thing we need to verify in our test fit is to ensure that the chassis fits in the cabinet. And it does. I am so pleased. It looks really nice. It's going to look better when it's done.